Good evening and welcome to the Zoo. The Minion with me this evening is Adam.
Hello.
And of course, as it is once again a Friday night, I'm the keeper for this evening, Sanguine. How you doing tonight, Adam?
Um, doing all right. I completely forgot that it was Labor Day weekend.
So it is.
Yeah,
Labor Day is on Monday, right?
I believe so. So yeah,
So I'll be
yeah,
getting
weekend.
time and a half that entire shift, which is nice.
There you go. And
But
how you doing,
I'm
Sanguine?
doing fairly well. Just had a fantastic dinner. It was fried pork and penne in a green sauce with some Parmesan cheese and then a finger of brandy. Absolutely delicious. And tomorrow, I haven't decided what I'm going to have, but it's probably going to be a either Hispanic or Asiatic pork dish, which should also be absolutely fantastic. So,
Well, I mean, they
okay,
both sound delicious.
yep, it was absolutely delicious tonight. The pork was juicy and tender. The green sauce was lightly spiced, but a nice, deep, herbaceous flavor with that little bit of heat, just kind of livening up the taste buds. Bit of acidity, bit of unctuousness. It was fantastic. So, do you have any stories that you want to launch into for the evening? Or any topics that you thought of that would be interesting to dive into?
I mean, I don't know. You know, like nowadays, I kind of feel like anything that I talk about would just immediately be tossed into the tinfoil hat area. But it's kind of like, how else do you explain this shit?
Yeah,
Um,
it's a bit strange when there's two simultaneous revolutions in Africa at the same fucking time. That both of them are being backed by Wagner and shit like that. Then you have the Prigozhin dying in a suspicious crash, potentially dying in a suspicious crash, because there isn't even confirmation that he was on the plane that crashed,
yeah, but then he pops up in a video.
which becomes a okay, what the fuck? Because, like I said, there wasn't confirmation, nor has there been confirmation that he wasn't on it. But then there is weird shit going on at the time where some of it's going, yeah, he's absolutely dead. Some of it's going, nope, he's still alive and kicking.
Well, I mean, okay, so we bounced off of like a random international news story.
The two
But
simultaneous revolutions
well, but
or the
I mean,
Prigozhin.
I'd also go with the um. I'd like more transparency with going on in Hawaii, with the going on after the wildfires. Um, so um, yeah, I don't trust FEMA out in that area. So if you're gonna donate, don't donate to FEMA. That's Adam's personal opinion, and I'll put it out there right there. Um, don't trust FEMA. A lot of that shit is going out sideways. There's a lot of weird shit going out there. What else? What else kind of news do you want to go into, sir? I
Well,
don't
like
know.
I
Like I
said,
said,
there's a lot of shit going on in the world. There's two revolutions because it's Sudan is in another revolution, if I remember correctly, and then Nigeria, correct? Those are the two, I think.
Nigeria and
Sudan, right?
I don't know if it was Sudan. It was what I think it started with a G, but it was all along the line, like right south of northern Africa. If you can, I mean, if you're looking at it, it's like a solid block along the central of northern Africa. Um, but even the flooding in China, um, even the fucking hurricane in Florida. How much damage did that do? I haven't really seen too much news articles coming out of it outside
Hmm.
of Biden at the FEMA headquarters. Um, but I've seen some videos of the aftermath. Um, I will say, damn, I pray for you, Florida. Don't
And the
befall the same fate of Hawaii.
and then there's also the other interesting circumstances in the world because, of course, we live in interesting times at the moment. Which, god damn it,
We do.
because it's just war upon war upon war. It's various natural disasters, interesting bits of information coming out about various government entities, and people still trying to do ridiculous, petty tribal politics where they're trying to willfully ignore any issue from their side. It's absolute insanity currently.
Yeah, it is pretty seemingly chaotic out there.
Mm-hmm. Especially how a lot of it seems very interconnected.
A
Because,
little
like I
too
said, both
seemingly,
of
yeah.
the African revolutions, the revolutionary element has Wagner support. Then the Wagner leader maybe being dead, maybe not being dead in a very suspicious plane crash just north of Moscow after he attempted a coup. Yeah, just shit's strange. So, any of those topics jump out to you as something that you want to go into, or anything else that you wanted to tap into? Shall I continue naming various things that have been happening? See if any of those wet your whistle.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Do we want to talk about world news, politics, or
You know the rules when it's my night. It's whatever the fuck catches our interest.
that
I
is true?
don't have a set topic because the entire point of my night is it's friends showing up at the bar and just bullshitting.
Yeah, but that bullshitting. We've hit a point where I don't know. Would it be a disservice if we didn't talk about some of this shit?
No, we can talk about whatever the fuck. That's the entire point of how I run my night. It doesn't have to be current events. It doesn't have to be news. We've waxed poetic about the Roman Revolution or the Roman Civil War between the Caesarian and Pompeian factions. We've talked about ancient conquests. We've talked extensively about mythology, food, and pretty much anything else under the sun. It is always, what interesting things do you want to talk about tonight? Because it kind of sounds like with that question, did you have another topic that isn't news or anything like that that you wanted to go into?
Oh shit. I mean, not really. Um, like you said, usually Fridays is, you just shoot the shit.
Yep.
It's just there's a lot of like, all right, so I got like three tracks going. There's one track that is um like the news. There's
Mm-hmm.
one track that is like video game stuff. Sorry. I guess keeping in flow with what I can talk about on Monday. Um, and then there's just like, random shit that I could talk about, but yeah, I'm sitting here like, I don't know if I can.
And W. Kostin Wagner is the Russian private military company, PMC, and the leader of Wagner, either the former leader, because he fucking died in a plane crash that was mysterious circumstances, or current leader, it's still up in the air which one, was Prigozhin, the former caterer turned higher up in the Russian government turned private military contractor leadership. Very strange story, that, because he went from being just a petty criminal to, like I said, he became a caterer. Then, as he was a caterer, he ended up meeting Putin. Putin liked his food, so Putin started giving him additional shit to do. And by all accounts, he was extremely proficient in the logistics. He was good at making sure that his men had equipment and had supplies. Better than the general Russian government was, at the very least. And you were saying, Adam, before to cut in and let Costa know what I meant by Wagner.
Um, did you explain what you had for dinner this evening?
Yeah, we started with that. The
Ah,
fried pork and penne in the green sauce with a finger
oh,
of
okay.
brandy.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm at a loss. Whoa.
Well, let's see. I'll go with something as just kind of a aperitif. Well, no, aperitif, because no, it would be an aperitif. A small thing to savor before any real meat. Not an appetizer, but aperitif would be the drink equivalent. And bring up one of the things that I've been into recently is I've been watching a lot of channels about various aircraft throughout history. There's a bunch of really well done YouTube channels. One of the ones that I've really been indulging in is one by the name of Paper Planes. Let me quickly double check to say that, to make sure that I'm thinking the right channel.
Paper planes.
It's a YouTube channel that does a bunch of Soviet aircraft videos. Because he's the son of a former MiG pilot during the time of the USSR that grew up being absolutely fascinated by planes, since what little kid isn't fascinated by planes? And sure as shit, what little kid with a pilot as a father isn't fascinated about different sorts of Soviet aircraft? So, let me, again, like I said, I'm almost positive that it's Paper Planes is the name of it, but let me pull. Oh, Paper Skies. Sorry, Paper Skies is the name of it. So he does mainly Soviet aircraft, but he does a bunch of other sort of aircraft as well in his videos. And I've just been binging his channel recently, as well as there's another one that is fantastic, which is Rex and what was. Sorry, I'm blanking on the second part of the name for both of these channels for some reason. Even though I was just watching both of them a second ago.
Hmm. Hey,
But
can I ask you a question?
go ahead.
How did you stumble upon these YouTube channels?
Oh, Rex's Hangers, the other channel. By just
Oh.
watching various videos on military history and weapons. Eventually, you end up getting the hey, you were interested in tanks and shit like that. How about some aircraft? You interested in aircraft? And they start giving you a bunch of aircraft videos in your recommends. And those two have been really damn good, high quality videos that go into detail about not just what
Oh, um, well, I'm not quite sure what happened to Sanguine. I don't know if actually. Let me see here. Um, I'm gonna shoot him a message. I hope that it's just me being oh jeez. Okay, hold on. Let me see. Doop boop boop doop boop boop boop. Yo, sayings. So, it's Friday. I hope everybody's doing good. Everybody's having a good Friday night. How how are you doing? You gonna have a good weekend there? Oh jeez. Dude, I don't even know if I can like stop the show or no. Oh. Okay. Well, I guess supposed to I guess as Sanguine says buy time. But unfortunately, I'm broke as shit. So I got what do I got here? I got some wooden nickels. Are those worth anything anymore? I don't think they are. I don't think anybody watching understands what a wooden nickel is. But yes. So I'm gonna try and buy some time. Wait, am I allowed to?
Okay, there we fucking go. God damn everything. Fuck me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
God damn this shit. So, like I was saying, I ended up finding that shit because military history is interesting. I was looking at military history videos. Didn't take long before it went, hey, you interested in military history? You interested in military equipment? How about aircraft? And they started just recommending a shit ton of different military aircraft channels, as well as military tanks and all kinds of other things. So I've been on a bit of a binge watching those, and then historic battle breakdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got interested in those. They've been really cool. It's go fuck yourself, Costin. It's really interesting going through those videos and hearing about the tech side of a lot of the aircraft, especially the Soviet aircraft, because fuck, we didn't really learn much about them other than MiG fast, MiG dangerous. So being able to find out the history of them, and in a lot of cases, it is an absolute comedy of errors as you're fine, or as it's going through the history. Like, there was a flight that killed half of the Soviets' top naval command because the naval commanders got piss drunk the night before, then purchased a shit ton of stuff that wasn't expected to be purchased, including one person bought several, I think it was like 2 tons or more of just paper for printing newspapers. And he had those loaded into the hull of the aircraft and was threatening to have everyone thrown in gulags if they said anything along the lines of, sir, we need to balance this. Sir, we need to tie this down. Sir, you're overloading this aircraft. And due to that shit, one of the rolls ended up moving during takeoff, causing the entire plane to get fucked up and crash.
Hold on. Are you still talking about this Russian guy?
I was talking about the aircraft channels that I was watching, which is what I was talking about before internet crapped out. And then because I came back and before I had everything crap out, there wasn't any topics that were catching anyone's attention. So I decided, fuck it. I'll talk about videos that I found interesting recently and channels that I found that are interesting recently.
Oh. Well, dude, I mean, you were talking about the airplane crash and then your internet crashed out. I think you probably shouldn't talk about the airplane crash.
This is an entirely different airplane crash. And I thought I had already finished the bit about Prigozhin when my internet crashed. And I was on to Rex's Hangar and Paper Skies, the 2 aeronautic channels that I've been watching recently. And then there was a question of how did I find those? And I started talking about that. And then partway through talking about that, everything shit the bed.
Ooh.
So, is there a topic that you are interested in talking about? Or shall I come up with a different topic? Because that seemed to go over about as well as that Russian flight did.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know. Was there? I mean, I can't say that there's nothing, on the news to listen or to talk about, but at the same end, it's like, you know, what I will say. Okay, I don't know where this attraction came from, but man, I've been watching a lot of like police interrogations, and it's some creepy shit. There's some a lot of weirdo people out there, man.
Oh yeah, the true crime interrogations and shit like that. Those are interesting to watch,
Yeah,
and it's as interesting when someone just can't help but continuously rat on themselves as it is when it's just someone who is deeply unsettling to even look at. Because I've watched a fair number of those sorts of videos as well, where it's always seems to come in one of those two flavors. It's either the person is just deeply uncanny valley the entire fucking time, or
yeah. It's like this dude did it. It's like he's just screaming it.
yeah, or there's also the ones where it's like, so do you want to tell me about this? This is about so and so dying. I wasn't even involved. How the fuck did you know that they died? We haven't even announced that. Well, it's not like I stabbed them. We didn't say that anyone stabbed them. What the fuck do you mean? Well, it's not like I dumped his body on this highway between this mile marker and that mile marker in the woods about 20 feet. What the fuck? You're just telling us everything. We aren't even asking questions at this point. Because there's a shit ton of them that just can't help but constantly rat on themselves. And they're not even really being asked all that difficult of questions. They're just constantly admitting to shit before it's even on the table.
Yeah, it's like they want to.
Some of them probably do. Some of them are so fucking deluded that they don't get it. Like the Amazon review killer, Colehep. I think that was his name.
Dude, yeah, I just saw that spring up on my YouTube. I'm like, oh shit, Amazon YouTube killer. What does that mean? I'm
Yeah,
just
the
gonna.
Amazon review killer was a creepy motherfucker, and he was one of the ones that couldn't help but think on himself the entire time that he's in interrogation, because they were talking to him, and almost like barely an hour into the interrogation, he starts talking about an entirely different series of murders that he did, and how he thought that the police would be really impressed because he went into that building and everyone was dead in like the next 45 seconds or less. And then he was able to get out, and they would have thought that was really impressive. And the cops are just like, this is fucking creepy. But you haven't heard about the Amazon review killer other than the fact that he's popping up in your suggested feed now?
No. I mean, like I said, I try and stay away from a lot of this shit. Um, both in YouTube and Twitter. I try and curate my timeline feeds to be uh not not jarring, so
Mm-hmm.
to say. Um,
Ah.
so when some of them creep in there, it's like whoa. But at the same end, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not sitting there like a stickler or anything like that. So I'll still take a gander at it. But Wow, I just used two old terms. Haha, there you go, Prospe. But um but yeah, I saw this come up in like police interrogation, and I'm like, oh shit, let's take a look at this. Um and yeah, that there's some creepy people out there.
Oh yeah, it's something that I think I've mentioned this on stream before. I have effectively three categories that I break people down into when it comes to their morality. You have the people that are obligate saints. Doesn't matter what happens to them in their life, doesn't matter how you treat them, they will always treat people nicely. These people are extremely rare, but you'll run into them occasionally. Then you also have the obligate sinners or the obligate demons, where they are fucked up. And again, it doesn't matter how well they're treated, how much they're cared for, they will always be an absolute fucking monster. And you see this with certain serial killers, where there's the stereotype of, oh yeah, serial killers beaten like a dog until they were 12, and then they started getting involved in crimes and tortured small animals and all that. But you see serial killers every so often where they didn't have a traumatic childhood. They didn't have anything that really triggered the incident. I'm trying to remember the name of the strangler, but there is a serial killer that was a strangler, killed shit ton of women. And apparently his awakening to this was when he was in like kindergarten, and he saw his teacher rub her neck. And from that moment on, he was really interested in squeezing people's necks. And that just continued to grow, and he had a
What the
sexual fascination with it, and then started strangling women. And he was this very like basic upbringing, no abuse, no issues, but for some reason could only get off by strangling women to death, and was a absolutely horrendous serial killer due to that. He would be a demon. He would be one of the obligate sinners, where it doesn't matter how pleasant a childhood he had, he's always going to be fucked up. Yeah, some people are just born evil. Some people are just born good. And then the vast majority of people are somewhere in the middle, where they'll be either smack dab in the middle, or they'll be towards one of the more extreme ends, where it can be almost anything could happen to them and they would be good, or almost anything could happen to them and they would be bad. That entire gamut is present in the vast majority of the population. And it's part of the reason why I get when people are saying that, well, we need to set up things in such a way that these people aren't made. I'm somewhat sympathetic to that idea. Because, yeah, there are people that are made that way by horrendous situation. And we should do what we can in order to limit that. But the problem is, not everyone's that way. You're always going to have some baseline level of murder. The trick is that you decrease the number of murders to that baseline, so that it's only the truly fucked up people will kill. And this is also one of the reasons why one of the things that drives me insane is every time I hear someone say, well, they couldn't help themselves when it comes to having committed a heinous act. Because I don't get how people say this as if that's something that we need to take into account and lessen their sentence. Because as far as I'm concerned, if they can't help themselves, that means that they can't not be the vicious bastard. If they can't not be the vicious bastard, there's no point in trying to rehabilitate them. There's no point in just keeping them in prison for life. No. Remove them from the gene pool entirely. Because if they can't be anything but that, there's no treatment. There's no way of dealing with that other than remove them. And it's not blaming them. It's not saying, well, that's a moral judgment on them. No, it's not a moral judgment on them. It's saying that if you have a good example of something that can't really help itself, you have a man-eating tiger. This pops up in India fairly often. You'll have a tiger that kills people and then just starts hunting people. When you have a man-eating tiger, you kill the tiger. You go out, you hunt the tiger, you kill it. No more man-eating tiger. The problem's solved. That's because the animal can't help it. There's no way to break the animal of the habit of eating people once it's developed it. So you just kill the animal. If you're saying that these people are of that sort of mentality, then yeah, same thing. It becomes, rather than trying to rehabilitate the person that is a natural monster, according to the people that say that they can't help it, they didn't choose to do this, well, kill them. It's not to punish them that you kill them, it's to protect everyone else that you kill them. And this happens with pretty much any crime. Come up with a crime and say that someone can't help but do it, and the answer always becomes, okay, remove them. Remove them entirely, remove them permanently. If they can't help but commit this crime, there's nothing else to do. It just drives me crazy every time that I hear, well, they can't help it. They can't not do this. Okay, so we can make it so that they can never do it again. And if it's truly that there's no way that they can be reformed, then there's no reason to ever allow a mechanism by which they can re-enter society. Because if they re-enter society and they truly cannot change their ways, they're just going to commit the same act. But that's always one of the defenses. They can't help themselves. Vast majority
you present us with a very stern and strict ultimatum.
Well, I'm following the logic of the argument. I don't think I think that there are some people in the group that people say, well, they can't help it. And those people, like I said, they're evil. They are born evil. They need to be, everyone else needs to be protected from them, and they need to be protected from them in the safest fashion. The safest fashion is just completely get rid of it.
Well, I mean, hold on. Don't get me wrong. I agree with you. So I mean, it's not even. It's just, damn. Yeah, no, that is.
Yeah, like I said, I'm laying out the logic, and it's the thing that I wish more people would do when someone says, well, they can't help it. Okay, get rid of them. That should be the response. Anytime someone says, well, they can't help themselves, not asking them to now.
Well, and what's crazy is a lot of times those same people who would have that sentiment, where, oh, well, no, let's think about, just keeping them in a cell. These are the same people who will sit there and be like, there's an overpopulation problem and we need to
Yep.
solve this for X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, okay, well, h- here's part of the solution. Like, I don't, as shitty as it sounds, you are right. Like there are humans out there that just they they will not they will not correct themselves. As
Yep.
as 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 harsh as that sounds, it's like that is the reality of it.
And
Like
some of them, it's not just they won't. Some of them, I'm willing to yield that, yeah, some of them it is they can't.
they want to do it.
It's not even that they want to, it's that they are the obligate evil that I'm talking about. Where it doesn't matter how you treat them, it doesn't matter what is going on in their life. They're going to do something fucked up. They're going to kill someone because they just have this innate, deep seated drive to see others in pain. Because we've
And like
seen this
and
throughout
like I said,
history.
I've had this sentiment. You always got to carry those variables that are outside of the black and white type of. Was that me? Or is that? Oh yeah, that was me. Gotta have that uh caveat, to the leeway, so to speak. Um, but after seeing some of these interrogations, it's like, dude, there are evil people out there, evil,
Yep.
fucking people,
And
and
again,
it's
part of the thing is that I'm not saying that this should happen for everyone. I would say that only the people that truly cannot help but be evil, this should be the case for. Because if someone can choose not to do something, if they do have control over themselves, then you can put them in situations where they will choose not to do the fucked up thing. So you try to arrange the world in such a way that those situations are far more common, and the situations where they will do fucked up shit are far less common. Which is one of the reasons why I like capitalism as much as I do. Because when capitalism is done properly, the only way to become fantastically wealthy is by improving other people's lives, by
and
providing them something that they want.
and this is where we go into our sponsor, um, Pure Gold. Pure Gold. If you sign into their website and type in MOTZ, they'll
See,
give you a signature gold trinket
I
to
was thinking
coin.
that you were going to say this is when we talk about our sponsor, the ghost of Adam Smith.
Oh, wait, the ghost of Adam Smith? Who's the ghost of Adam Smith?
Adam Smith, the person who wrote the foundational work on, or is recognized as writing the foundational work on the idea of capitalism.
Oh, well, I can take it there.
And he's
Probably
also,
been.
there's a fantastic quote that I absolutely love from Adam Smith, which is mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. Which I think is becoming ever more clear as things go on. Because every time that we hear, well, we need to be merciful to those who have committed crimes, it's always meaning let's release people before they've actually been punished. And that is just cruelty to the innocent. Because when you turn back a when you turn a criminal loose upon the population without actually punishing them, without actually going through the work of re-socializing them in such a way that they'll have a better chance of not committing a crime, all you're doing is you're allowing that person to continue victimizing the innocent.
Yeah, you're letting them get away with it.
And Skep Tock says, context, whenever there's great property, there's great inequality. For one very rich man, there must be at least 500 poor, and the affluence of the few supposes the indigence of the many. And I absolutely disagree with that sentiment. Because that is
You disagree?
Oh yeah, I disagree with that sentiment because that sentiment is at the very core of it is, but it's a sentiment that I absolutely disagree with because that is at the very core of the communist ideology, and capitalism, if anything, has shown that it is not a zero-sum game. So are you familiar with what the term zero-sum game means, Adam?
Yes.
Okay. So just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, a zero-sum game means that if one person gains something, someone else had to have lost it. There is no way that two people can gain while stealing. If there's only two people in a society, there's no way in a zero-sum game that only that the two people can both gain while neither loses, which I absolutely disagree with because capitalism has shown time and time again that there doesn't need to be someone that loses when someone becomes wealthy. In fact, that's one of the beautiful things about capitalism, to my mind, since a deal that is not being enforced from the outside, every single freely entered in upon trade, both people get the better end of the deal. That might have sounded weird to some people, but let me explain this way. Adam, you've had my food, right?
Yeah, but I think I've maybe sampled once or twice some of your foods.
And you enjoy my food. You think that it's delicious, correct?
I would say that is correct, sir.
Okay, so if you were hungry and I was making a meal and I made a bit more than I needed because I just happened to cook a lot and I needed a little bit of cash, so I went, hey, Adam, I'll give you this meal if you pay me, and we negotiate back and forth and we come to an agreement on what a fair price for the food is. You get the food by handing me the cash, I get the cash by handing you the food. You need the food more than I need the food. I need the cash more than you need the cash. So you feel like you're getting the better end of the deal because you just had to give that small amount of cash for the food that you're going to love. I feel like I'm getting the better end of the deal because I just had to give that small amount of food for the cash that I'm going to use. Neither of us loses in that situation. Both of us gain an advantage. Both of us get the better end of the deal.
Right.
And, okay.
Oh, I was gonna say right. I agree.
Yep. And yeah, it's one of those things that definitely highlights something that I've mentioned many times before, Skep, that I hate the tendency for a lot of people to go, well, this person was right about this, therefore they're right about everything. Because Adam Smith was right in many respects to how capitalism works, but in saying that it was a zero-sum game to the extent that he did, that's incorrect. And it drives me crazy whenever people say that capitalism's a zero-sum game, because like I said, in a proper trade, both sides feel like they're getting the better end of the deal. And that's the reason why people are willing to make the deal. Because if you don't feel like what you're paying or what you're getting is worth what you're paying, at least worth what you're paying, if not worth more than what you're paying, you aren't going to make the fucking deal. Because if we're in, let's take the situation that we were in before, where you were hungry, I was cooking, you had cash, I didn't have cash, so we made an agreement, you gave me cash for food. If instead you are stuffed to the gills, absolutely cannot eat another bite, and I say, hey, I'll sell you this bit of food for this amount of money, more like than not, you'll go, no, I'm full. Because the food won't be worth as much as the money to you in that situation. And functionally, Johnny, currency just is an indirect barter. Rather than having to have the goods to hand at every moment, you give them the means of getting those goods. They're functionally the same thing. It's just that we like to view them different.
Yeah.
Like I said, one of the lines that I did love from Adam Smith is absolutely the mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent, and it plays into the idea that I was talking about earlier of if someone truly can't help themselves, remove them. If they can help themselves, by all means, I want to rehabilitate that person. And I want to have a society where it makes it so that it is more likely that someone will do something good than it is that they'll do something bad. I don't want it to be mandatory that I don't want a dismissal of free will, but I want it to be that the good people who would act good, regardless of the situation, will still act in the right way, because that's their very nature. The people that are in that middle group will do the right thing because, okay, yeah, it's the right thing, but also it gives me some benefit. And the people that are kind of fucked up would also do that, because when you're in, like I said, a capitalist nation where the only way that you can properly acquire resources is by meeting the needs of another person, in order to get wealthy, if your true desire is to acquire as much wealth as you need to think, okay, what do people need? And you need to provide that. Which is a good thing. And it raises up everyone. And another good example of it not being a zero-sum game is look at the massive improvement on quality of life that we've had in the past few hundred years. A poor person in America lives better than many kings of prior ages. Because a standard poor person, not talking the person that is absolutely homeless, but a standard poor person living paycheck to paycheck, they probably have air conditioner. They have a refrigerator. They have an oven that is not likely to light their house on fire every time that it's used. They have running water. They have electricity. It used to be that diabetes, gout, and obesity were things that were only possible for the extraordinarily wealthy to acquire. So diabetes, gout, obesity were things for the nobility. They were things for kings and queens and lords and ladies. Look at the United States. Somehow we turned diseases that were only present in the most fantastically wealthy and powerful people into diseases that are now hallmarks of being poor in the United States. We have made calories so goddamn plentiful that someone living paycheck to paycheck can eat themselves into the grave without running out of money before they do so. That's pretty fucking ridiculous. Like I said, the AC and refrigerator, that's something that's amazing when you think about it. Skep, you remember when getting an orange for Christmas was actually a bit of a flex? It was something that people would do to show off how much money they had, right? I'm not mistaken in remembering you telling me stories about getting oranges, right? Well, he's answering that in chat. For the longest period of time, it was something that people would do in order to show off their wealth, to give clementines during winter. And that was seen as a really nice, expensive gift. Not a single person listening to this show can afford to buy a sack of clementines in the dead of winter now. Not just one clementine, a sack of clementines. They're ubiquitous. At any point in the year, you can go to a grocery store and you can buy a sack of them. This was completely unheard of because we didn't have the transportation. We didn't have the ability to refrigerate. We didn't have the ability to harvest them in quite as large of an area as we do currently. All these things play together so that we now have that as a common fucking thing. We have fruits year-round. Pretty damn cheap fruits. Even exotic fruits are easily acquired. It's easy to go to a standard grocery store and pick up a star fruit or a dragon fruit. You can pick up kiwis of several different varieties. You can have the standard green kiwi. You can have the red kiwi. You can have the yellow or golden kiwi. You can buy apples throughout the entire year. You can buy baby greens throughout the entire year. As time goes on, we keep on raising more and more people out of absolute poverty to the point where we now have people that are trying to redefine absolute poverty, not because, well, the amount hasn't been changed in decades. They're trying to redefine absolute poverty because they're trying to redefine it to include people that aren't starving, which was kind of one of the main benchmarks of absolute poverty. Absolute poverty required someone to have food insecurity or be starving and have a lack of shelter. And okay, I'm going to mute you, Adam, because you just zonked out. So, people are trying to redefine it now so that someone can be absolutely poor while obese. They're trying to redefine it so that someone can have a house with air conditioning and still be considered absolutely poor, which is absolutely ridiculous. We have relative poor. And in the United States, we functionally just have the relative poor, other than those who, most of them are mentally ill and they're on the streets due to that. But for the vast majority of the poor in the United States, they aren't absolutely poor. They're relatively poor. They're poorer than the average American. And they're poorer than the average American to the point where it makes their life a bit more difficult, but they aren't absolutely poor. It is extremely rare to see anyone that's absolutely poor within the first world. It's one of those things that when you actually think about it, it's ridiculously impressive how much has changed. Like I said, go back 150 years. So in the mid 1800s, refrigeration, not a thing. Closest thing you get is an ice box, which you have to pay for ice deliveries in order to have that. Being able to get fruit the year round, only the wealthiest can afford that. In order to get air conditioning, unheard of. In order to be able to eat to the point where you're able to become obese, that's, again, something that is limited to only the very wealthy. And 150 years later, those are all common. Those are standard things that the vast majority of households in the United States have air conditioning. Pretty much every household in the United States has a refrigerator. And if I remember correctly, when I looked into those stats the last time that I did, the bulk of the houses that didn't actively have a refrigerator, it was because their refrigerator had broken and they were in the process of replacing their refrigerator. It's fascinating what technology can do. It's fascinating what entering into deals willingly does. It's the beauty of capitalism. When you provide a good or service to someone, they provide you with currency in exchange. And it benefits both of you because you need the money, they need the good or service. You come to an agreed price, both of you get the better end of the deal. It only starts breaking when people start putting their thumb on the scale, and that's through the form of government. Which is where a lot of the current issues come into play. Because when you're looking at, well, why is my energy so expensive? Most of that is government issues. Why is my rent going up the way it is? Well, because the market has been strictly regulated so that houses can't be built to meet the demand. So as the number of houses available grows nowhere near as quickly as demand for houses, you end up with the price of housing skyrocketing. Well, why is internet so expensive? Because there's few providers that are able to actually compete in any given market. A good chunk of areas, they have one or two providers. If you have one provider, there's absolutely no competition in that area. If you have two providers, there's very little competition in that area. Same thing with phone lines, same thing with cell phones, same thing with medical coverage. Medical care is ridiculously regulated to the point where a good number of the options that used to be available aren't anymore because they were regulated out. Not because they were ineffective, not because they had lower quality of care, but because people didn't want those to be options. That was the reason why the old fraternal society doctors were put out of business. And yeah, like I said, Johnny, it's, I think 75% of the United States or something like that has air conditioning, and it's something like 98% has refrigerators. And the refrigerators that we have now are massively improved in many respects from refrigerators of yesteryear. There's some features on old refrigerators that I do like there's, I'm trying to remember the name of the brand of refrigerator, but it had aluminum Lazy Susan shelves. So rather than having to dig in through the entire refrigerator, you just swing out the shelf and you'd be able to find everything on it nice and easy. That'd be nice to see it come back too. But we have ice machines in our refrigerators, the vast majority of us. We have water dispensers. We have shit like that that was never a thing before. Another good example is TVs. Almost every household in the United States has at least one TV. I think it's a majority of them have multiple TVs. And when you look at the TVs that we have now versus the TVs that were available a decade ago, 2 decades ago, our TVs are better and cheaper when you factor in inflation than the TVs of the time were. They have a higher resolution. They have a higher refresh rate. They have a larger screen size. They have more true to color. We have these massive improvements through innovation and the capitalist drive to make your fortune. So someone comes up with a innovation and then they sell it. And they sell it at a price that people think that it is worth getting that product for that price. And as time goes on, people come up with new innovations. Not necessarily improving the product. Sometimes it's just, or a good chunk of the time, it's just making that product cheaper to make so that they can lower the price to sell more of it. They have lower margins on every single sale, but they have higher profit because they're able to make more sales. And we've seen this constantly throughout history. It's one of the most amazing things, but we have people that are constantly saying that capitalism is the source of all evil. No, it isn't. Nowhere even close. Yeah. HDMI versus RWI connections. You have TVs that are able to access the internet. That wasn't a thing. You have TVs that my current computer monitor, my main computer monitor, is curved in order to make it more natural to look at every section of the screen. It has a slight curve, which is nice. I like this. I like it more than the flat screen one that I have right next to it. And that is a fairly new thing because it wasn't really a viable bit of tech in order to make that type of screen until someone came up with the innovation that was needed, and it became viable, and it became viable enough that you're able to purchase it for less than like a 24-inch TV in the 80s. And when I say less than a 24-inch TV in the 80s, I mean than a inflation controlled 24-inch TV in the 80s. The only thing that has become more expensive, or the only two things that have become more expensive when it comes to their price controlled for inflation, to my knowledge, are college educations and houses. Cars are cheaper. Cars have more features. So you get more for less. TVs are cheaper. TVs have more features. You get more for less. Refrigerators are cheaper. Refrigerators have more features. You get more for less. Technological development is absolutely fucking amazing. I love it. And the same thing happens with basic shit. The reason why we're able to have obesity be a hallmark of the poor within the United States is because we're able to produce so much fucking food, and we're so good at distributing it that it is cheap enough for them to afford in large quantity. It's ridiculous. It's amazing. People that think that everything is always getting worse when it comes to time, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. There are certain elements that are negatives. You can have certain cultural elements. But when it comes to the material aspects of life as the years go on, it just keeps on getting better. The material aspects. The cultural aspects, yeah, you have people that keep on fucking things up. You can have times when crime is on the rise rather than it being on the decline, like we've just experienced throughout a good chunk of the United States. You can have issues where people are far too keen on throwing out hard-won information from history. And that's one of the big things. It's people that want revolution have absolutely no use for someone that is happy or even mostly happy. The only people that they have any use for are those that are deeply miserable. Because those are the people that will be willing to change everything. People that are happy, they don't want revolution. They might want gradual change here and there. They don't want revolution. Which is why a good chunk of revolutionary groups' time is spent trying to make other people miserable. And trying to convince them that they're living in hell. Rather than just saying, yeah, things aren't entirely perfect. There's ways of fixing them, but you want to be careful. You want to make sure that you don't break shit as you try to fix something else. So you do things gradually. You start on small scale. You build it up from there. You expand it out as you go. And yeah, this is something that is the case on the left and right. Anyone that is wanting some sort of revolution, they need people to be deeply unhappy. And that's also why those sorts of groups hate anyone that tries to help people. It was the reason why Jordan Peterson was hated by the feminists when it came to him talking to mainly men, but also women, saying, hey, here's the way that you improve your life. Here's what you go through. Here's the method. I can't do it for you. No one can do it for you. You have to actually put in the time, put in the effort. And people were doing it. And people's lives were improving because of it. And feminists hate women that do the same, where they look at women and say, no, it isn't some patriarchy that's keeping us down. It isn't this horse shit that's being sold to us. It's we're making choices. We're making choices, and those choices aren't always the best for us. Sometimes we have people making choices, pursuing a high-earning career when they don't really want one. What they want is they want a family. You have to decide. Do you want a family? Do you want a high-earning career? Do you want some sort of mix of the two? And then you have to think through how you achieve that end. And when you figure out how to achieve that end, you implement it. But don't blame others because shit isn't working out exactly how you want. Figure out what you can do. You have the ability to control it. You have the ability to improve your life. Those people are hated because they're offering something other than misery and rebellion. They're offering a way of actually improving things. Well, that seems like a fairly decent point to leave off to me. That slightly happy note of those ways of improving your lot, and the caution that anytime that someone's preaching a revolution of any stripe, realize that they need people to be unhappy in order to actually be willing to go through with it. So don't let them convince you that you're unhappy. Think through the things that are good. When you make changes, make your changes carefully. Don't just go and try to change everything all at the same time. Change it by degree so that it improves and you know you aren't fucking up anything else. Because this is a big problem that we've had throughout the U.S. history as well. I complained about it last week or the week before. The idea of how we do birthright citizenship in the United States was an overcorrection of something that did need fixing. We needed something that did say that, yeah, people that were freed were American citizens, and the children of people that were freed were American citizens. But there was a way that we could have done it that would have been a more well thought through and appropriate response, but there's a desire to fix it and to fix it quickly, which caused us to overcorrect. And rather than going, okay, so anyone that was born in the United States before this time and anyone that is a freed person within the United States borders is now considered a U.S. citizen. Anyone who is born of at least one U.S. citizen is also a U.S. citizen. Boom. Done, dusted, and we don't have this birthright citizenship bullshit the way that we have it, where all you need to do is pop out a kid on U.S. soil and suddenly that kid's a U.S. citizen, which we're the only country, to my knowledge, that has that way of doing citizenship. Every other country, it's your parents have to be citizens in order for you to be citizens, or you to be a citizen, or you have to naturalize in order to become a citizen. So think through changes. Think through them carefully. Once you know what you want, implement the changes and work up to them. Make sure that you aren't fucking up anything else by doing the change. If something starts going tits up because of your fix, course correct. Come up with a different way of fixing the problem that you noticed and see if that way works better. Don't just commit to a path blindly. Don't allow yourself to be made unhappy just because someone who wants a revolution needs you to be pissed off. So it's the way that other countries do it and the way that I would have one. My ideal version that the US would have would be the same as other countries, where if your parent was a citizen at the time of your birth, then you're a US citizen. So if your mother becomes a US citizen and then you're born, you're a citizen. But if you're born in a different country, your mother then emigrates to the United States, and she becomes a citizen here, you aren't suddenly post-Tock made a citizen of the United States. You had to have had your parent, either one or both, have been a United States citizen prior to your birth. And if there was any sort of wiggle room, it would be like within the first 5 years of your birth. I could understand that as well. Yeah, that's the way that every other country does citizenship. It's you have to be born to a U.S. citizen. Or not a U.S. citizen. You have to be born to their country's citizen in order to be a citizen of their country. Just being born on their soil doesn't mean anything. If you're an American and if your parents are Americans and you were born while they were on vacation in, I don't know, fucking Canada, you aren't a Canadian citizen. You're a U.S. citizen that happened to be born in Canada. If your parents had they were working overseas in Japan, and you were born while they were overseas in Japan, you aren't a Japanese citizen. You're an American citizen that was born in Japan. Like I said, we're the only country, to my knowledge, that does, if you're born on U.S. soil, doesn't matter your parentage, you're an American citizen. And that's bullshit. But like I said, my guest for the evening zonked out, and I feel like that's a decent point to end off. So I'm going to call it a night. So I'll leave off with my standard words of, if you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed. Good night. And now this takes